I'm here with Bradley Lambrick. What's really special about Bradley's story and what we're going to do tonight is, and I'll let Bradley do most of the talking, but there's something uniquely powerful about what Bradley went through almost 4 years ago. He had severe marriage cancer. But what he did for his life, for his kids, for his family, and what he turned around within his life is monumental. Regardless of what's going on in your marriage, if you're ready to step up to be an incredible man and husband, you're going to learn a lot from Bradley. Bradley, take it away. Give guys a little bit of introduction about who you are and what was going on back in 2019.
Hi, everybody. I'm Bradley. Like David said, about 4 years ago, I was kind of at the pretty much last stages of the marriage that I was in at the time. It kind of been ongoing, not necessarily by anything of my choice, but ongoing circle behavior for a while. I reached out to David and we set up a phone meeting and talked about it. He was very honest with me. He said, I don't know if I can actually help you in that. You're actually doing a lot of the things I would tell you to do. But if you're willing to, we can dive deeper into these things.
Can I hold on to a little bit of what was actually going on or not going on in the marriage that made you reach out for help?
My wife at the time, for the third time in 9 years, had decided she wanted to leave, and it progressed and gotten worse. First, it was, I don't want to be married. And then it was, I don't want to be married, and took the kids to another state when I deployed. I spent 9.5 months deployed dealing with that hanging over my head. And came back 2 years later. It was, I don't want to be married this time. Took the kids to a different state. Had an affair with the neighbor guy. There was just a laundry list of things. And here I am trying to be what I thought was a good guy, right?
Yeah, let's talk about the good guy. What does that look like?
Don't stand up for myself. Just continually just sort of be kind of like a placemat. Like, I'll do this because you need this. Or because there's such this fear, really fear driven. You don't want to end up like a statistic or anybody else. And so maybe I was doing all the right things, reading the right books, trying to do these things that in David's coaching and course, you really expound upon. But in all fairness, I think there's a lot of fear driving it as opposed to coming from a very internal core place that really transforms you and makes you go, okay, look, I'm a human being, I'm a man, I'm going to do these things. I'm going to do them regardless of the consequences. I'm going to do them because it's the right thing. And it needs to be from a place of genuine of who you are. And I'm not perfect at it by any stretch, even now on this side of things, but
we're going to get to that soon.
Yeah, I think I have a deeper understanding that you can't let fear drive you. And for lack of a better word, just take it. That's not the right way to do things.
It's like the honey-do list where a lot of guys get stuck just doing things, yes, honey. And what the wife is actually picking up, she's not feeling love from that. The wife is actually just feeling desperation, even though you don't mean to communicate desperation. So it's really powerful. By the way, me and Bradley have been spoken for 3.5 years. We've texted every now and then. We spoke like 5 minutes before we got onto this live. You came in August 2019, and at that time, your wife took to another state, cut off communication with you. She was busy in an affair and stuff. I want to talk about the fact that I believe you were in the
Coast Guard.
So why don't you tell us a little about that? There is a part of a lot of marriages that gets impacted by people being in the military, serving our country. There are quite a few men who have gone through this. Would you share a little bit about how being in the military's impacted your marriage and whatnot?
Yeah, when you're in the military, you're kind of living a split life, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but there is a reality that I go and do this, and then I come here. And it's hard. I think it's really hard to fully invest in yourself as a person, right? Because you're living almost these two lives, even if they're going parallel together. But coming from a military mindset, a lot of people do this. These are my orders. This is what I'm going to do. This is my marching list. I'm going to do it because it's the right thing, because 1 + 1 = 2, and A, B, and then C is next. And you just do this, and you may be doing the motions, but do we really stop and ask, like, wait, why are we going here again? And that sort of attitude doesn't always, when you're back home, you're like, oh, am I really here? Am I really present? And I think, too, there's a lot of dysfunction in military marriages just in general. Maybe in the world there is. I'm not an expert on it, but I think there's a lot of dysfunction in military marriages because it's so back and forth, and you're getting a lot of different personalities and things thrown into this little core special thing that you're supposed to have. You're pulled in so many directions that you're not really invested. And then once you finally, like for me, when I became aware and I was like, holy crap, this is happening on that first deployment I was talking about. I deployed overseas, and it really shifted me. I was like, man, I'm not really fully present. But I thought at the time, I'm going to be a champion for my family, for my marriage, for me, and all these things, right? And I would say for a lot of the young guys that get married in the military, maybe take some extra time and looking in those things, because there are a lot of selfish people out there, myself included at certain points in my life. And the military is a perfect example of this. We joke about dependopotamus. Someone just wants to marry you because of all the benefits that you get.
Interesting.
You're all going down a downward slide. You know what I mean? And so you, the person, are going to get lost. And it's just, well, what does this person do for me? And as soon as you decide, I'm going to stand up for myself, everything's built on shaky ground.
I appreciate you sharing that. There's another dynamic you touched on, Bradley, for a moment. In the military, you have a mindset of getting things done. If you bring that to a marriage, it actually doesn't work, because what actually matters in a marriage is not what you do. It's the specific emotions that you touch within your wife, and knowing how to move those emotions, how to identify those emotions, how to interpret them. Just doing things doesn't move it. In the military, if you do, you could be a success. As a husband, do actually sets you up for failure. Being the placemat, being the doormat, and being used. And what's interesting, though, that you said about the military, and I'm expanding on it. You're in the military to serve. You have a good heart. You cared about your country. You cared about your wife. You cared about your family. There are a lot of husbands who are not in the military who have the same attributes. They genuinely want their wives to be happy. They want their kids to be happy. They want to be a role model. And they still fail at their marriages for the same reason that someone in the military will struggle. They get so stuck on doing that they don't take the time to truly understand what actually makes the real difference. What is it, the 3% that actually controls and influences all the other 97% of my action in the eyes of my wife? I got to say this interesting thing. At the time you came in 2019, I don't even believe we spoke about marriage cancer. It was something that I was still pondering, and I didn't finalize my understanding of the various stages of marriage cancer. But looking back, you were like in marriage cancer stage 5, right? Why?
It was over. It is now. But I think our initial conversation, just quick on the phone, I remember where I was at. My ex-wife had left. I just called you. I was sitting in the Walmart parking lot, literally just like, I don't know what to do. And you're like, look, you're doing all these things, but I don't understand why they're not working. And I think when you're like, I think I can help you, but I'm not 100%. But let's do this. And I was like, okay, let's do this.
What happened when we did it?
Maybe,
what happened?
Maybe all the things I was doing, maybe they were quote unquote what you would teach me, but my heart and the way in which I was doing them, I'd never really taken. I didn't have a good enough understanding, or someone gave me just enough that I thought, oh, okay, cool, I'm gonna do this. But I hadn't really been coached. I hadn't really taken the time to examine something simple. Hey, every day, write down 5 things that you're grateful for. Like, I remember doing that list, like, why am I talking about myself? This is ridiculous. And then all of a sudden you go, man, I actually believe these things in me, not in an arrogant way, but in humility. You know what? These are true things about me. Hey, when did you first last stand up for yourself? When did you start doing these things? When did you actually try not to just go in and fix it and go, okay, this is what she's saying. This is what she's trying to say. Like picking up on what her heart is actually.
Can we talk when you say what is she saying and what she's trying to say? Because what's really powerful about what Bradley did is he came in at a point that if your marriage cancer was basically stage 5, but what's really so inspiring, what you've done is you decided to look at your past marriage and to extract every single bit of value and clarity that you can get going forward so that you can use it in your next relationship if need be. And a lot of guys don't understand this. They think, hey, I'll figure out what went wrong on my first marriage. I won't repeat it in my second marriage. The reality is there's about a 50% divorce rate in first marriages. Second marriages is 67%, and third marriages is 73%. So if guys were actually figuring out what they did wrong, the divorce rate should be going lower instead of higher. I want to talk about the skills of what is actually going on behind the scenes. What's going on in her heart? Not just, okay, being a good guy, focusing on gratitude, which is important. It's just not going to really change your marriage. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the skills that you got attracting a woman, being in an intimate relationship, thriving in it? What were the skills that you picked up while you were in Amazing Marriage Fast Track?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, like you're saying, Dan, my marriage to my ex-wife was over. And I think when we talked about it, like, look, you make no magic pill promises, right? You do these things, you're going to be a better person no matter what. If there ever was anybody, you said something really powerful. You're like, you're going to find somebody that's going to see the value in you, and they're going to want to be with you. And I was like, this guy's freaking out of his mind. I don't think so. No one's ever going to see me, single guy, starting over in his life, getting out of the military to raise his 2 kids.
This guy, by the way, when he says this guy, he's referring to me. He's being polite. He's referring to me.
That's all well and good. He's being nice and everything and being encouraging, but I don't see it.
We got to say this. You did get out, and I believe you got full custody of your kids, if I recall correctly.
That's a whole other thing.
I'm saying, but at the time, you did get full custody. So you're getting out of the military, you have 2 kids, and you're saying, like, who's even going to be interested in me given this baggage? Let's hear the good part now.
So I meet this amazing woman. I'm married to her now. Her name's Nicole. Freaking fantastic. She's like, I love you. I'm attracted to you. All these things that she had been looking for She's got her own story of other relationships. She goes, I value you. And I was just blown away. I think I even text you. I was like, you're never going to believe this.
Right. When did you meet Nicole? You graduated Amazing Marriage Fast Track in about October, November of 2019. Give us a timeline. When did you meet Nicole?
I met Nicole in September 2020.
Makes sense.
I think for me, the value was making sure that I'm doing this for the right reasons, that if in the hardest moment, I shouldn't shake, I should still be, or at least in the very core, be this amazing husband. In the moments that like I catch myself and go, crap, man, I've kind of been strewn up the last like hour or 2 days and go, okay, no pity party, no whatever. I need to do what's right. Letting my wife say what she's trying to say and then try to sit there and not over and go, what am I missing here? Because she's using words, but her body language and emotions don't quite match up.
By the way, that's powerful. Bradley just said so casually is a skill that took you months to actually pick that up.
Oh, 100%. I still am learning it. I still sometimes sit there and go, this is that moment that I'm supposed to be catching myself going, oh, this actually isn't about me. This is about this whole other thing that's going on with my wife. And I can either add to her beautiful existence and make her life easier, or I can continue being a stubborn jackass and just be like, no, you're doing it wrong. And I want to say I always fall on the other side. I'm not perfect, and I don't think anybody is, but I do have this skill set to recognize and go,
intuition.
My tongue right now, literally probably like 20 minutes ago, we went and got coffee. My wife's taking a break from work. She's working from home today. Well, I'm talking, trying to be encouraging. And then she starts sharing, and she's like, sometimes you just talk too much. And I was like, and normal me, old me, especially wants to go, well, I'm trying to be encouraging, give you less, like try to help. You know what she needed? Sometimes she just needs a place to be crazy and let it all out. And for me to just sit there and be like, okay. And I love you anyways. And that's easier said than done.
I want to hold you on that. Yes.
It's my choice to be as best as I can. Never going to be perfect, but it starts with me. And if I wait for my wife, who's amazing, by the way, to love on me and to love on 2 kids as if they were her own, I need to take full responsibility. I can do this regardless of how she's feeling today. And those things are confidence in here. And that's kind of what going through the course was like. You may be doing all the motions, but your heart was never fully in it, or maybe it was, but it just wasn't trained. I think we talked about UFC. You don't just get into the octagon on like your first fight. It's like months and months of training. You don't gain 300 pounds overnight, so you're not going to lose 300 pounds overnight either.
Exactly.
So you got to work at this.
It really is a skill. Like, and for the guys listening, what Bradley is talking about is intuition. Intuition is the mother of all skills. Knowing what to do in the moment, to move forward, to move back, to say something, to not say something, to apologize, not to apologize. Sometimes apologizing can backfire if you're apologizing at the wrong time for the wrong thing. It might sound simple, but it's actually the hardest skill to learn. That's because you actually have to be able to look at 20 different skills and know which skill do I pick in this moment. I can't just use a fork because I like using a fork. You may need a hammer sometimes. And knowing when to shift is, you started talking about the cat for a moment. Do you want to say something about that?
No, I don't think it's too deep. I just think that, the idea, and I think this is where I was at when we first met, is here I am doing all the things, but I didn't really have a full understanding. And maybe over 20, 30 years, I could have figured it out. But that's 20, 30 years of heartache. And I think it's super important to have somebody that's invested in you, not because they want you to succeed, because it makes them feel better, but because they have a passion like David does, like you do, to be able to come alongside people and go, look, you may be doing all these things, but there's way more to it. And your foundation is to go further. So like, I can dress up as a waiter all I want. And that's what I think I was doing. Good, bad, or ugly. And my marriage fell apart. I could explain it for hours why it was probably felt to from the beginning because of X, Y, and Z and some other things that are going on from the other side. But what I can tell you is that I have this woman that says now, my wife, Nicole, that goes, you are valuable and you are amazing. So what's the difference? Because I didn't just magically change overnight. I'm doing the same things, but this time I'm doing them with conviction and consistency that run a lot deeper.
They're a reflection of you. You don't do things which are not a reflection of you, and you know which things you got to do that are actually going to interact with her in a way that hits her heart, as opposed to spraying everywhere and hoping something hits. And that's...
Yeah, exactly. It's being very direct.
I know you got married, I think it was almost 2 years ago, like it was July of 2021. Does it make sense? Or August of 2020?
Yeah, August. Yeah,
right.
August.
I remember you sent me a picture. And by the way, for the guys watching this who want to discuss with me if you are a fit for the program or not, I'll show you in a minute how to do that. Can you talk a little bit about the effects it had on you as a parent using the AMFT skills, Amazing Marriage Fast Track skills, what it did to you as a person beyond your marriage, like in other relationships, as a parent?
Even as the intuition, right? Like One of the things being a parent, if you have kids or just even around other people, you start to walk into a different mindset of going, okay, like you said a second ago, well, I really like maybe the fork's not always the right thing to use. You sort of start to look at those things, and that makes you connect. And I want to say a different level of intimacy too, right? With your kids or with my wife, or even just being able to look at that and go, yeah, this isn't that time to use a fork. And I don't think it's a hammer time either. I think maybe what this is, I'm going to get the spoon this time and we're going to try it this way. Ultimately, it starts in here and you're focused on it for yourself and then your wife and then your kids. And then just by default, by doing it, I think you end up being a better friend, a better son, a better coworker. Inside, you have a different conviction and a different level of going, you know what? Not everything is always as it seems. And this person may be actually having a hard time. Because I can tell you right now, when I go, I wonder what my wife's not trying to say. I can look at my kids sometimes and go, I wonder what my kids aren't trying to say because they don't have the years of experience or the words. So maybe I could dive a little deeper and sort of have compassion, seek to understand, seek to connect with them emotionally because that's important.
This is the key to intimacy, knowing what to use and building enough credibility that you can lead your wife, lead your kids, direct them, stand up, not just be passive, but you've earned the respect in a way that when you do lead them, they actually pay attention because your wife wants to respect your opinion. She wants to please you. She wants to fulfill you. She wants to make you happy. So it's no longer a fight. It's no longer even a negotiation. It's just a matter of knowing how to navigate those intimate conversations, each time coming out better and stronger. It sounds so simple. The way you make it sound is like, that's so simple. Why couldn't you figure that on your own?
Yeah, I mean, conceptually, yeah, it sounds simple, but to actually put it into practice, it's like everything. You don't just run a marathon because you chose to run a marathon, because you know how to walk.
I love the way you say that.
But it's true though, right? Like,
Right.
And I'm still a work in progress. I'm still getting better. I still screw up and I still have to go back and go, man, I know better. Okay, but now I can sort of self-analyze, and not in an arrogance way. I think just in a very I want to be better than I was yesterday, and I want to be better than I was 5 years ago. And I want to keep becoming better. So you do these 8 weeks, sure, they gave me a lot of knowledge, but it could have just stopped after that 8 weeks. And I could have just been like, okay, cool, I did the 8 weeks. All right. Peace, sayonara. You're giving me a solid foundation to be able to sort of, what's that old saying? Give a man a fish for a day, teach a man to fish for life. It's 8 weeks of learning how to do this on my own with you by my side. By the end of it, as long as I put those things into practice, I'm going to be on the right path, so to speak. I'm going to be able to do it on my own and not have to go back and go, why me? Why is this happening? But I can go, nope, right here. I think this is it.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate that. And for guys wondering if they would be a candidate for Amazing Marriage Fast Track, there are 2 requirements. Number 1, you have to have the attitude that you really want to go deep. You want to go beyond the symptoms. You want to understand. You basically want to take 100% responsibility for the 3 to 5% that you might be doing wrong. Bradley, if you came in and said, David, look at all the things I'm doing right, which is what you did on the first call, I would say, man, so if you're going to focus on what you're doing right, that's not going to help you. You got to allow me to show you those little pieces that you're doing wrong, right? That was the key to your clarity and the key to your intimacy you have now in your relationship. So you got to have the desire to go deep. And number 2, you have to want to become the best version of who God designed you to be.
It's true.
And what would you say? And for the guys who do want to have that conversation with me and my team, write down pick me, and then we'll reach out to you and have a conversation with you. Bradley, what would you say to guys watching this video right now and they're thinking to themselves, all right, I'm just going to figure this out. I'm just going to become a good person. I'm going to become good because Bradley, you're inspiring me. What would you say to them?
I think that's all well and dandy if you want to do it on your own, but I think there's no better thing you can do than invest in yourself, right? If anybody's out there thinking about doing this, if you think this is going to be a magic pill and just magically save everything and fix everything, I think you would even tell them, that's not what I'm offering. I'm offering an in-depth look for someone to go on a journey with you and to really pick apart why it is you're doing some of these things and to really give you a solid foundation that you can eventually continue to build upon with principles and values that make you look inside. We talked about being grateful, right? Just even those little things of looking in the mirror and going, okay, what are these 5 things that you're grateful for today? Write 50 things down that you do well. I would have never done that. And then over time, in 8 weeks, I learned these things and I go, man, there's value in all this stuff. And there's value in somebody who wants to teach you and be there with you. It's not like you're just spoon feeding me the information. You're making me do the work. They find the information, but it's sticking and it's becoming a very part of who I want to be. And the proof is, okay, I have a failed marriage on this one side. Maybe it's all my fault. Maybe it's not all my fault. I'm not going to get into that. What I do know is here I am in the middle. David helps me find these things and coaches me through these things. And I work on it for 8 weeks. And then I look at what I have now. And even on the worst days, because marriages aren't always fun, they're frustrating, or we got bills to pay or whatever. Even on those days, I'm like, you know what? She is beautiful and amazing. And even on the moments that she's ready to just like, you left the toilet seat up again, right? She still loves me. There's not a question in that. You know what I mean? I think that if you're in that spot, man, invest in it. It's worth it to you as a person, as a husband, as a father. You're going to see a benefit more than just what Amazing Marriage Fast Track, right? You're going to see an actual benefit in you, the person. And that will everything else in your life.
Yeah, exactly. It's the clarity, the confidence, the intuition. I think you made a decision back then. Now, you don't want to spend 20, 30 years of your life figuring it out. Maybe you would if you had the right heart, the right intention. I spent, God knows, over 10 years trying to figure it out, and it was painful as hell. But you made a decision. You'd rather find David Astoba because he already made so many mistakes that you don't have to continue doing it. And it's not for everybody. But I'll tell you an interesting thing about Magic Pill. We have some guys, especially in earlier stages marriage cancer, like if you applied what you learned with marriage cancer stage 1, where they're still home, there's no total separation, no affairs, wife is not cutting off connection. We've had a lot of cases where guys have massive breakthroughs within a couple of days. And those are actually, in a certain way, the marriages that are in the most danger. Because when a guy has a premature breakthrough, what happens is, and you'll appreciate it, Bradley, because you're on the extreme opposite of the spectrum. When a guy has a very quick breakthrough, it can be as a result of applying just a couple of things that we teach in Amazing Marriage Fast Track without him fully understanding, incorporating, and applying the entire strategy. And then he's faced with a bigger challenge, and you can see how it all falls apart.
I would agree with you. I think that was part of, I don't want to say flawed logic, but I think I had a few of those, hey, you're doing these things that I would actually tell you to do anyways. And I did have a few breakthroughs, but there wasn't any consistency. But what I can tell you is that now that I've worked on who I am, I can see that foundation, like, man, with Nicole, night and day. I feel like a better husband. I feel like a better version of me, because I have this thing that we did together for 8 weeks. And I still have all my notes from it. I still have all those things. I think it's important. I think it's powerful. And it's made me a better husband, father, all those things. But they're inside of me now, the core things.
It's beautiful. And you actually attracted a person like Nicole into your life. There's no way you would have gotten a woman like Nicole without having that foundation. Because you wouldn't be aligned.
No, I don't think so.
You would be on a different level. You wouldn't be something she would want. It's beautiful that you've done that for yourself. And of course, we don't want guys to wait until they're in stage 5 marriage cancer, because we don't really take guys like that anymore. And that's why I felt it was appropriate to take somebody who went through Amazing Marriage Fast Track, did not save his marriage, but show exactly what it did for him in his life, and to give guys a much bigger context. And again, for guys who do want to have the conversation, pick me. We'll have a conversation. We'll see if you're a good fit or not. If not, I'll tell you, I promise. The beautiful thing is to see consistency. You know, when someone has a solid marriage, there's consistency. When they could go through month after month, now you're married for almost 2 years. You've known her for almost 3 years. She loves your kids. Your kids consider her to be their mom. There's nothing more beautiful than that. You have your whole life ahead of you instead of trying to figure out in a second and a third relationship. Kudos to you, and I appreciate you taking the time. I'll wrap up the Facebook Live over here. Guys, whoever's been watching this with Bradley, I would love to hear your take. What was the biggest inspiration? What was your biggest distinction and aha moment? Thank you, Bradley. You guys on the other side.